Okay, you can hear me, Barrett. Welcome to the spot time here at the Barrett's. My name is Royann Dean, host the bottom using. Today we're here for inspired by sessions, conversations creating for the curious, all about business design activity. Very exciting session tonight. Super excited panelists. Session tonight is called "Is AI Coming?" And why is that important right now? That's important because AI is a tool, but it's also a leader in its own right. It's impacting the way that we live, the way that we work. So here tonight, our panelists are here to really have a really insightful conversation. I'm delighted to be joined by my immediate left, Dwayne Whylly, who's a partner in the Sweden and Barrett, a leading local law firm, curatorial manager of the National Art Gallery of the Bahamas, and he's also a practicing artist. So welcome, Dwayne, Richardo.
Thank you.
We're going to this exciting topic. Okay, just a few housekeeping notes. So we will have our conversation here for about 45 minutes, and then open the floor to questions. If you have a question, then the microphone will come around to you. And you can ask any question. There's safe space here, so ask your questions. So ask that you consider other people. So. As I mentioned earlier, artificial intelligence is changing the way that we work and we create. Large language models use the available information online to generate ideas. So in this talk, we're going to really be asking the brains of artists when their work is used by AI to create new work. We'll address concerns around some automations for blue chip jobs, insurance, financial services, and other knowledge product industries. But before we get started, I know hear a lot about me, talk about me. I just want to give some useful data. So, stay with the conversation. We're going to be talking a lot about generative AI. Generative AI is a branch of AI that focuses specifically on generating content, like images, text, or music. So, sure, we're pretty much all using some type of GPT, like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, but there are other AI. There's other AI software that generates music and text, but this is what's the generative AI. So unlike traditional AI, which is programmed with algorithms, generative AIs, they're training on a large data set websites. We all know with Reddit. So basically, it scrapes the internet for information on those types of websites. So it's learning and generates content. So let's get into our first question. That's about the impact of AI jobs. So we know that AI is to the task companies, as I mentioned, like insurance and financial services. But people are concerned, rightly so, that generative AI could replace jobs, especially knowledge industries like accounting, shady, but and also with creative industries like writing and design and photography and videography. Part of the fear around that is that AI will solve job loss. But the argument on the company side is that AI makes work more efficient and it frees up the time of those employees for higher work thinking and more valuable skills. So Dwayne, from a legal perspective, what frameworks exist that you know of here in the Bahamas or elsewhere to protect workers displaced by AI? Are there specific legal protections in place to address sensitive emerging challenges?
So firstly, in the Bahamas, and obviously, you know, being a lawyer, so anything that I say would be generally during the Bahamas. I like that, but from the Bahamas, kind of protection of employees is based on employment. Our Employment Act, which was 2007. So as of right now, there's nothing in there that speak to dog losses as a result of there are regarding redundancies. So if you are making something redundant, you have to treat them, which typically means that you're paid affordably to reflect the fact that they're losing their job. And then you also go through additional steps to show that the role actually has been made redundant, that there isn't unfair or bias in selecting the persons that you are making. And the processes have been followed, yes. In the context of AI, I think that inevitably, you know, it will become a part of the workforce. It will become a part of your skills and can you use AI effectively, efficiently. And so there'll be a matter of employees that will face. Honestly, will probably step ahead and continue to be useful. And those that's I think is probably so maybe kind of it, then they will be assessed on their output and be considered necessarily AI.
If we keep on the legal side of things, when we talk about generative AI, making brief content from existing work, for example, and Richardo, you can speak to this as an artist. Generative AI uses, for example, there was a piece that was in the that was made by a programmer that made AI to scrape the artwork from the bonus collection, generate the works. The next time, or the first time it will the new work will be in 2050 or 2030. So, but that's using work that's already existing. And that's using work that artists are making. So my question is, in relation to that, going back to the legal side, do copyright laws apply to this type of content? So for example, if Richardo makes some art, and then that artwork is used to create the artwork, but by AI, is there any legal protection for whoever's creating that original piece of work?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the Bahamas recently used for Copyrights Act, so Copyrights Act 2024. And that has come in place, which automatically gives creators of new and original content rights to that content. In the context of AI, because AI is not specifically mentioned, it's specifically dealt with. I think the copyright issues will be, as it relates to AI, will be dealt with in a very similar manner as they've been dealt with in the past. And the key test of respect copyright is there a significant part of the original work in the new work, such that when somebody sees the work, they associate it with the original work. And that has a two-pronged test, it's both subjective. There's an objective measure in the sense if you use 50% somebody else's work, that potentially cross a threshold such that there's too much of that person's work. It's also subjective in the sense that you may have been for copying 1% of this work, but now 1% is so inclined that everybody automatically recognizes it. Brings to mind that piece of work. And so I think these are issues that the courts have been dealing with for years in terms of what is substantial part and really taking an objective and subjective test to determine whether a basic test is copyright. And so I think the same applies.
Richardo, just touching on that. In your world, how are artists reacting to the rise of gender that they have? Do you think they see it more as something to enhance the practice or to see it as a threat instead of tool for creativity?
Well, I know. We was talking about before. I'm not between right now. Because of like quality. AI instances of screen. I think it's very kind of it's a little bit very dangerous right now because give you an example, there are you have major of open AI syntax. Copy images of operating data to train there's some AI that generative AI software. And then that art now reflecting on what things that they training. So I think it's really dangerous for a lot of especially online based artists to do this because a lot of them can content is out there. That's how a lot of them make their money, that's how they market themselves. So for a lot of those artists, especially creators, anything that's digital based or online, their images are being used to create these programs to create this art. So from that aspect, like a lot of artists they immediately like against it. But I could say from when you think of like studio artists, fine artists who practices need physical time needs, things that can necessarily live and exist online. A lot of artists are using that as a tool. So I'll give you an example. So you have generative AI programs where anyone text based income or like, I need a picture of a guy, something valuable, right? Which is highly valuable because it's in society. If you can hire someone to just take a picture and it's as a reference, all you want to do is still go in and find a photograph, right? That's probably copywritten and music that work. Or you could use a program that takes a bunch of different images and brings a whole new image, hopefully, and you use that image as a reference for like a certain quality, a certain movement, certain style of art, and you use that as a reference in art. And then you as a person you determine, hey, I'm just using this figure, I don't know, like copyright. Right. So I'm like on the fence as it relates to like these citizens that it's possible future for stay on. The use of images of artwork for to create. How is that different except for a lot of than what people are using? It's we're going to study these artists. How they do their methods, their types of art. And then you're saying that it would be as a student, say, well, I'm going to incorporate this and I'm going to incorporate that also in my art. I mean, maybe you guys do that on a speaker because it's able to process so much data. But for me, it's about the degree that's introduced to something different. You would think so, but I mean the research is there, that's why that's not getting problem is, so, for instance, if you go to a certain program, like the AI program, and you say, hey, I want an image of going back to and like a body something, right? The source material that they use sometimes when we have like 4 books, 5 books as an example, obviously it's more than that. But oftentimes the findings, the image of the data that's generated as from that command is still closely related to the source material that they're using. So the problem is that it's not spitting out something so far removed from the original that it's viable. right? And going back to the example, that's a lot of human beings, right, can be inspired taught from, other sources, other people, techniques. But at the end of the day, it's still the human factor of today, like I would not outright copy, this piece of work, or when you talk about generated machine program, they're just trying to execute the commodity into the best bit of the material that they're doing, right?
Well, there's an interesting point there. I recently went to a conference, it's an innovation conference, and Timberland, the producer, was on the panel. And it was about AI, technical rates of musicians. But the back of the company, and the fact that was doing, they were proposing legislation, as development, that would essentially put a digital stamp on the work of musicians, citizens. So that if there were, some type of song by AI, there's a way to track where that work came from, and a way to give credit and sort of to the artist. So maybe something like that might be possible from a visual arts perspective, but I know that is associated with aspect of health and that protection. But also on that note, what could be done from a copyright perspective to protect artists? That makes sense. So they mentioned that there's some copyright protection in place, but what do you think can be done to enhance that?
I think it's tough to kind of put strict tasks on what art and generating new ideas are subjective. Whether something is considered close enough to something else would be a matter of how it's interpreted by the basis. I think that's where we look at it where the key the test that just generative AI can take a percentage of this piece of work, percentage of that piece of work. If they take smaller percentages, you definitely get something new out of it, because each of those percentages might harken so closely to the original piece of art that it still kind of feels like that. And so I think this will really come out as these are tested before the course. And at the end of the day, I think the idea of this expansion for tests will be refined. But I think that will still be the main thing, because at the end of the day, every artist kind of takes for something else. If you think about a lot of these new age rap songs that were got off so music, and they took that, but they gave credit to the original rights to that song. And so I think there's going to be a bit of that. AI companies that make the AI, they're going to have to go out and make sure that the content that they're using to teach the AIs will be far and correct propaganda, so that the original are given that credit.
I mentioned earlier, the one part that was the one who said the art. That piece was called unsupervised. And basically the whole idea behind that piece was what would an AI think about after seeing 200 years worth of art. But it was in that gallery space, and it would be like, here we have the work of humans, but you have a work that's created by AI. How do you determine the artistic value of that work? And there's a thing around integrity production of art. The art is the response back to it as a whole. Should works be treated differently in a gallery setting? It's created by a person, or it's by
Well, my personal opinion, I think this leads back into like copyright law. As it relates to the AIR, it's still some ownership happening, because it's a company or person, right? So what is the intention of that person in the company or entity creating? Because at the end of the day, someone's still taking responsibility, I would think. So with this awkward being in space, I think if the intention is to say, hey, this is made by AI and focuses on that. But sometimes someone or the idea could be like, we just put this up in here, put a random name and see how people can interact with it. But in terms of the way you treat it in a gallery space, I don't see creators having an issue with interacting with it, knowing that it's AI or trying to have a conversation about it. I think most creators are open to that in a gallery setting. I think where the issue or kind of like the problem comes into play is this idea of the script now. Is it, are we going to give the AI praise for this artwork that's produced? Like, say, people, how they do what's about it. Is it that you love the AI or love the fact that the creators made this happen? Like, I think that's where it comes in. Same thing with an architect and building. Because the praise is the fractal, or is it the person who designed, this piece?
So this ties into what we were talking about earlier. So I don't know if you all heard about humanoid that earlier this that humanoid made a piece of work that was sold for $1 million at a Sotheby's auction. And so we were talking about that earlier, and Richardo asked us the question, who gets the credit for this? And was that art purchased for the sake of it being a good piece of art, or was it purchased because the person wanted to claim that they bought the first piece of art and bought the art? So what's your take on that? About that?
So my initial feeling of that is it comes down to contracts. And I do believe that, and we've tested out AI, read the contracts, and most of the contractors say who is so part of what comes out of the AI. And so I would, my perception would be you need to look at the contract that you're signing when you sign up to this AI program to determine who has the rights to it. Because it might say, and I think most of the time it says, if you use a prompts to help so the image once it's created, artwork or song, whatever once it's created. But it may firstly say, well, the company that produces the AI signing up for will allow rights. Well, so from a lawyer's perspective, my thing is really contracts. And the contract should outline who has it, and I don't think that there will be any of these generative AI that are kind of letting you take it out of the contract. So,
Everything staff that becomes a part of the set.
Yeah, I think as it relates to that specific case, like you tell the same video, like it's subjective, art is subjective, but also I feel like it's I've seen it, it's not like
It is not a reason.
So like I feel like they bought it because of the fact it is operating in fire if the AI want to this piece. But it goes back into the question of like stopping anyone from exactly copying this piece, right? Saying that it isn't already copyright, infringing on someone else's copyright, right? Because it's the AI produced. What is protecting that? What this art made by this AI that does not have rights, this copyright essentially fully as far as protects people. Right? This is why this whole generative AI thing is like an issue really because copyright was made for people to protect and encourage creatives to even create work. So what sense does it make for a person to create something that's not protected? Which is from what I understand why copyright is existing in the first place. So
but I think it goes back to the AI that produces whatever this work is going to be owned by someone or something else. So, where you have a human being, they have autonomy, they have sovereignty of themselves. So anything they produce will come necessarily described to them. But any AI is necessarily owned by someone, wrote the program, whoever acquired the rights to the source code of that program. They will be on. And so by extension, what AI produces, unless there's a contract that states otherwise, with the person who just involved in or otherwise would typically go for the stuff. So I think it's still gonna be protected, particularly if it's support. I think the owner of thought, the human being will get the rights to that product. And that would then be protected in the copyright laws. Assuming this is DBC as the original would be. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So I want to ask a question. You two are both, you're in different industries, you're law, but you're both generating with work, just manifesting in different ways. And the question is, we're talking a lot about AI generated content, but we mentioned earlier, if you have a comparison between a script that's generated by a person and one that's generated by AI, the consensus from the people who looked at the AI generated script was that that was better. So AI can do the same thing in contracts. So my question is, do you think that generative AI coexist with human creativity, enhancing it rather than replacing it? Because if we continue on the course that we're on, you can see where there's a reasonable person could say that it could replace the creativity component. Do you think that it will be a collision course where humans need to compete with machines? Because if people can't tell the difference, then how do we make sure that humans stay relevant?
So I think the way I look at it is AI as of right now is so it answers the problem. So if you ask it to produce X, it'll do better than X. So as long as it's still that giant machine, it's not thinking for itself in terms of what should I produce today, I think it will not replace. I think what it will choose though is that there's a set as to being a skilled worker, somebody who has benefits. Because the economy will be a nightmare. To produce the output. So it's no longer that take art as example, and I can like rough okay, maybe you could generate something with AI that has been great from and there's like come across with something easy. And typically look at 3D printers and all that stuff now as well. So they still the person says I honest a boy, but I don't want my boy to be pushing it one it's a role development, something different, exciting. That is going to be that idea would be not necessarily person who spent unfortunately years for skill, spent hours with me spent trying to say, yeah, 20 away and kind of the dash industrial revolution changed the way that we work. So I think we are kind of the box as the impact that driving workforce by looking at it.
Yeah, I believe there's only spend lots of it's not cheap. So I don't see it in the practice, right? With that, I see an age where people have to evolve and be able to use AI and regular stuff, like just everyday people you can Google something now, you know, that I don't know if you guys study phones, so you're not ready, but there's an AI prompts that explain stuff even before you get to anything else, right? So it's a part of life. But I don't see it being a problem also that it just it can help police things like laws, protection for artists, stuff like that. And in terms of the source material, because like for example, Adobe. Adobe's I think the latest one that they came up with has AI built in. So what happens is if you're working on a photograph, Photoshop in particular, if you're working on a photograph, painting, whatever, and say for this example, you have a photograph and there's like this huge rock. You know, I'm gonna add like circle the rock and you can say it is rock. And it removes the rock and makes it seamless like it's rock. Right? Something like that, it's not a big issue to stuff, right? It's just how like the AI is built in now and say just people do a lot of all this. Of course, in the photograph will like, right? And you highlight this person, right? And you highlight this, remove this person and then put a tree there, right? So now you remove this person and put a tree there. So you get into the whole issue of to source material. Originally, what we said is false safe. This is what they said is creating AI source materials, so they're creating safety fees that they need to protect if you go on and sell this piece. But something like that I haven't seen in the same see it taken. So that's
There are some of the ethical considerations that should be taken into account when we're integrating AI into processes. And creative processes, I mean, anything that's requiring. So some of the ethical considerations, both legally and culturally, what do you think that's those considerations?
well, as it relates to artists, I think it's just in AI specifically, I think it's just best practices. Like if you want to incorporate that into discipline, what programs I mentioned, like research. If you're going to use these programs, figure out what their source material is, you get into problems later. Because a lot of these programs are getting so much attention. It's funny because some of the work that they're sourcing never got a bunch of attention, but because they're being used source material for these programs, if that anything to be otherwise, it's going to draw a lot of attention. And they have programs these days now that you like upload a picture and it has anything related to this thing and I can find it. I'm not going to skip problems, it's something to think about. So as an artist, I think it's just to have best practices, maybe using this creative field. I'll give you an example of my phone name when I recently saw some art. I knew that it was AI, right? If you're following the pattern of AI for whatever reason, they cannot generate figures. Yeah, so what happens is when you send in like a prompt and say like, hey, this person made food. Well, I don't think that figure, the figures in the food is more funky, right? So currently, as an artist, it's figure out. But I said to say someone used this and I could see that they hid the comments in the piece that kind of like that. And maybe that was towards the determining like skill set as it is in this particular like artist. I feel like, you doing these things and thinking that hey, it's this new trend thing, you just jump on and produce work, it's not gonna fly. So the best practices is I feel like strong receiving cautious, like just because it's very, very
But let's say that if you do want to use it, I think from an ethical standpoint, you should state that you're using AI as a part of the process to be smart. Because it would be like, if you have a piece of work, you're gonna say by the use of color or charcoal. But if you're using AI and use it as a tool, the ethical thing to do is be honest about what your raw materials are, so to speak.
I was thinking of asking the question on the of all the materials, but I think it comes down to source. Which source material is the AI referring? Are they giving? But if it's really the final work by the AI, I don't even kick it over. Or if you think it, making sure you're using. So, I'll give it credit to this source.
I think there are multiple considerations, like, should be taken into account.
One thing comes to mind, I would think, but I mean, off the bat, obviously, thinking of things like, for example, like that's a strong thing. There could be applications of them using source material or the program using source material for photographers. You know, videographers who utilize, who have documented on the room, and somehow these programs are being trained by that, and then pumping out things that are top this in nature. I think that's a big, you know, ethical kind of coming from, because who's to say that they're not consistent fix is seen here. Maybe that's a good thing, that's good, right? But that's, I think, like ethical like issue there.
I guess I kind of feel like it's art where reviews and I think we deal with that all the time with, you know, certain artists that are using certain artists, that they're reducing this. So I think that's a very good question of the art. I think what makes it difficult with AI is that AI doesn't have a heritage fun class. Yes. So the question is, when I think it comes back to, is it AI that's involved, that would be the form of the appropriation artists. Artists matches that culture, is it all right for them to ask AI to do something to that culture? Does that make a difference? And I think from that perspective.
Concerns are. And you mentioned earlier the generative system set. There are problems with the data sets. So take art out of the equation, look at text. If you ask for, you know, what was the history of the Bahamas in 2092, you know, what will come back from if you ask a question about show me a picture of a person who is an office worker. The person who that photo doesn't have access to something. Right, so I think that these are some of the considerations that need to be taken into account, because it may not necessarily reflect the truth, it may not be accurate, and it's going to be biased depending on where that data is coming from and how clean that data is. So I think those are some of the considerations that to look at, because if, for example, the contract's being drawn up on AI, that contract may be biased on direction of other based on what that data set is. Or there may be stereotypes in something else that's made that we can end up releasing culture or releasing something that is actually fact because of the kind of mindset.
And I think that point actually, well, probably be a good question. So protecting, right? And so it's the job of people who get these things when it's fund balance, the tax to review it, make sure it aligns with the interests of the relevant persons who are factual history. And give it a once over. I think we're at the point with AI now, we just trust it. So it's important that if you are using AI, that you are making sure the information is correct, or double check that the sources that it says is relying on, and confirming that the information is true.
So on that note, how do we educate the public and stakeholders about the implications of generative AI in a way that is accessible, so it's really easy to understand and it's done in a responsible way? And what role do institutions like galleries, legal institutions play in this education?
This game, a lot of time we try to take the grassroots approach, especially when it comes to these like it's the AI studio visits with artists as it relates to like I think a lot of artists appreciate that aspect of it. It's like this one all of these things frankly, especially how sensitive if you get something with AI, but doesn't want to say that as one of them. And I think eventually talks and panels similar to this can help with that. So far, I think the experience is valuable when you think of like our culture. I had to have that conversation. And you were very appreciative of that. I feel like it so like this idea of spreading this information. We have exhibitions, I mean, the call installations we get, again, like studio visits and talking with artists, I think it's very productive. Yeah, I think that's like a good way of going about it alongside like panels and everything, because we're in the information age of like, I feel like any responsible like person who's on themselves as a professional body artist should be able to get the research, but I found like just being taught as well.
And I agree with that, but I think also from the institution perspective, there's one other people understand the risks, right? So, there's a risk with everything, do everything you use, certain risks are known more than others. So when it comes to using AI, what's the risk? All belongs to that system. So it's educating people about the risks of, what you put in, does it come out, comes out accurate? Doing that in a way that's not fair and unfair. Use AI because this is bad thing can happen, but understanding that there are benefits of AI, there are risks. And make sure you understand it before we jump into it.
It's really important also from a corporate perspective, because we're in a corporation where we're trade secrets, you may be doing something else that's highly protected, but we just need a way to do this task faster if there is not in-house AI, right? So proprietary AI that's in a closed system, you're putting that out there, for it to use a data set for someone else to access. So I think it's also important, not just from the individual perspective, but from an institutional perspective, that everyone who's working within that institution understands the risks of using open source program.
I think eventually we're all going to come up with AI policies. Like I know at our firm, we're discussing it almost at our meetings to look into the form of AI, and how we come up with the protections that this gives us, how are we how ensuring that we're not uploading information or communicating that to everybody, we should don't upload sensitive to this. So I think from a institution like this basis, helping them follows right now addresses this. Will be very useful for them to make sure that we're not
Yeah, it's also important to I think understand that AI, and there's some like paid, there's some ones that have paid laws that you don't pay to use it, but the OpenAI and ChatGPT, but it's like open, right? A lot of people use some kind of open because they're trying to, it's training day, right? So you, helping the company build this repertoire that I would actually put the same training. So going to be careful when we get out and saving it, when you have a record of what it is giving you. You know, and even like people are using images, whatever it gives you, they're making record of it giving you, passing an email address, whatever it needs to sign. So they have a record of these things as well. It's
So information is as old as the last. So you may be putting in information, but until they update that again, it's 4.2, that information is accurate and or potentially accurate, or to the extent it is accurate, it's accurate as that what you're using. So something innovative or something that maybe like a case that came out that they've changed the way they're supposed to that particular subject. That may not be in that data set that you're using. So not just rely on what the AI produces to discover.
Take this advice and saying, excuse me. Good advice policymakers, artists, tech developers, or those who are working with AI, generative AI. What would your one piece of advice to them be?
I would say make sure the source material is acquired in a way that is protected of that material's form.
All that work from the policy.
But from a policymaker perspective, I guess. So I'm not sure if that's something that policymakers have to get involved in. Because they feel that the legal system has copyright issues for hundreds of years. Everything comes back to who has the rights to the material, are they getting it rewarded for those rights? So from a lawyer's perspective, I would say if you are either using generative AI or you are the producer of this particular generative AI, had their proper royalties given to them. There's no claim that people are against. They've gone with the board for 500. And whether that's by contract, whether that is, you getting information as a regular source, at the end of the day, if that material, that information has already gone the royalties associated with it, you're free to use that material. So a lawyer's perspective, that's a public. The advice I would give is, with any other, yeah, understand how it works, just watch. Like I feel like most successful innovations as it relates to art, become successful over the years, like problem solving, stepping in, all these different things. So I think as a creative, you just have to watch this out and don't be like, ignorant to it. Like don't do old AI stages, just cut yourself off of AI, right? Just be aware of the trend that's happening. So the future, like how can you be careful when it's perceived. That's what it is.
I said the word future, that's a great segue to our next question. So looking 5 to 10 years into the future, how do you envision the workplace, asking of creativity and its expression? What do you think that we should be excited about? What do you think that we should be excited about?
I think it's going to look very simple. I think you're just going to become more efficient. Thing, rather than say, maybe you develop their AI that we go to, but I think it's going to be a conversation. everybody's gonna be coming in flux into the some AI. So we need, or most ideas. So we make up an idea, we talk with you, get something that reflects that idea. To your environment, whether it's as an artist or in profession environment. I think. I don't think the work is look bad. I would say that art autonomy can be lasting. Because depending on the field that you're in, right? For example, AI generated stuff, especially companies that can just like protected source of material, data sets. So instead of them to, you know, aggregate so much time, you're like, hey, it's 50 and you just pop this thing, throws it out, you have to close in the shut case. So it will traffic with that. That, but on the other hand, you may have the purists. You may have people that are so more on having quote unquote real art or real person do this thing. It might drastically bump up that market, you know, because the person, again, Gregory Webster, was charged like 2,000 this thing. Now he's charging 5 because now all of his customers are partial. His customers are now gone to AI produced graphic work or whatever. So he has to like basis marketing. It's like value in you humans creating art or graphics. Even in the fine art where you ramp up art as a beginning, but I definitely positive on it's going to be drastically different because people now are still having like they're not all on the face of the in videography and YouTube is filled with trailers that are produced by AI and people are having a hard time like the general public trying to figure out what's real and some have 2 million views and people like how is it real?
I feel like a little bit of a dead denominator because, well, in terms of like the workplace, I'm gonna answer that question. In terms of the workplace, I'm excited about, you know, there's gonna be increased efficiency. Ideally that means that cost go down. So for the end user, that final pay less. So that's something that's exciting. And also that people will have that time freed up. You know, they do higher order thinking, so they're coming up with new ideas that they can be more efficiently and better and having a better solution. So that part is exciting. From the workplace and from the creative component is 2 things for me. The first thing is, does that mean that people are in touch? Right? If AI is so integrated in our perspective, do we lose the kind of flaws that make what we're doing? You know, it's like if you're listening to a singer and they have to go this kind of like scratch. That's something that at least I think so, like you can't have it, I don't know, it's not yet. But I worry about, you know, that kind of element. I also worry about decisions being made, going back to the ethical considerations, I worry about decisions being made without empathy. Because I'm sure that at a certain point, there's a whole argument about whether we have decisions or not. But at the moment, decisions are made based on what is factual evidence as presented by them, not necessarily on, you know, empathy that creators that are maybe not crazy, but they are beneficial. That makes sense. So.
But I did follow them. Then do you feel like it's creatively satisfying even if it's typed versus being like written? like a really nice handwritten font. That's a human element, like a touch that we have now, by some stats have evolved from, like, there's not a lot of written documentation or poetry that's like handwritten out, like everything is like typed out. Just from a visual aspect of it's still the same words. Is that has that lessen your appreciation for that? Just speaking about like the human touch aspect.
So I don't think it lessens it, however, if I am reading something that is handwritten on a piece of paper, it increases it. So I think that there's a subtle difference there, it's like this kind of nuance, right? It's like you can go, if you see something that is well designed, not necessarily appreciate that it's well designed, but you realize if something is not well designed, that makes you appreciate, I think that is well designed. That makes sense.
But I think just like the point of as the value. And I think that will improve the value of human nature. Because everything's gonna become so automatic. So, I think that gives us an opportunity to actually work with it. Says that we don't have to, let's say we get to the point where AI does all the hard, with the hard typing. And as a lawyer, the only thing I get to think about is creating these structures for my clients that solve problems that develop a value and what they're sitting and actually typing it out. If you're typing it out is the boring part. The part I like was the having discussions and then so I think there'll be more value than even.
I know. Okay, that was our last question. So. More questions. If you have a question, please just raise your hand and I'll come to you.
Hi, earlier today, you guys brought up the matter of disclosure. Just want to dive a bit deeper into that. Right now, Meta or Facebook, they currently have like a tech sort of uploading something they actually they have a policy that they give you the AI in the process should indicate it, and they also a lot of machine learning in the background. I uploaded a photo. I have an iPhone with intelligence. I just like to and detect that I need. So what I want to ask, whether I'm making a video, I generated this script with a should I disclose that I haven't done where I generated a photo as a reference material by something like she up to disclose that he's in that book.
I didn't do that. I think that's because you get into the problem in terms of takings and you risk not just for art, you risk it like sensitive thing, right? You upload it in and it's fails in for people. Okay. So I think it's great that these things are in place in terms of being able to detect. And I think that's still really like this like right for the see evidence of companies doing that, but like the fact that we did that and it's able to detect it, and then it means that the iPhone has some kind of like digital marker that lets other companies like Facebook realize that hey, AI is using this. I would hope that's the practice of other companies, but if there, we could determine like where the line should be drawn right now, because I don't see this being like